Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's competition time. This is about the future of your sector. It's the 24 Housing Young Leaders Final. Now, 24 Housing's Young Leaders is a competition that aims to find the brightest talent in the housing sector. An initial shortlist of 20 individuals has been whittled down to 5 finalists. Now, unfortunately, one of them has been unable to join us because of trains. So we have 3 in the room and 1 on video. They will each give a short speech describing their ideas on how they could change the sector for the better. And after that, we'll have a bit of a Q&A and a mini grilling, after which they will be judged by our panel of judges. And to hear a little bit more about that process and the ideas behind the competition, please welcome up David Orr.
Hi, everyone. Just before we start, all of those who are so far back I can't see you in quite a big room, it's going to feel better for the people on the platform if you didn't mind coming a little more towards the front and making it look like a big busy place at the front. So there you go. While you're doing that, are Steve and Molly in the room? No? Okay, that's fine. Not a problem. All will be well. Imagine being stuck on a train. You're coming all the way to the Young Leaders Final. You've prepared for it. You've got everything ready. You've got your presentation ready. And you're stuck on a train in Rugby that's moving nowhere. That's the position that one of our finalists finds herself in, which is a real shame. So the background, I think most of you know about this. The Young Leaders competition has been run by 24 Housing for a number of years now. My involvement as one of the judges, the Federation has always hosted the semi-final, and I've always been able to spend at least one day with the winners of the competition. Our involvement hasn't been right from the very start, but this will be when we identify today's winner, this will be my 7th Young Leader winner. And I can tell you from getting to know the other 6 very well that this is not an easy competition to win. We have, in our sector, I am pleased to say, actually both here and the Future Leaders event that we've been running, we have some very, very impressive and very talented people. And it is a long process that people have to go through to get to this stage. There's the online part, there's the nomination in the first place, there's the online part, there's the semi-final, then there's this final. And then there is what I think is almost particularly cruel, that they get ranked. 24 Housing doesn't just like to say, here's the winner and here's everyone else who entered. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, so you know exactly where you stand in the pecking order. Which means that the people who've put themselves forward, who've agreed to be nominated, who've entered the competition, are all people who understand that this is a big deal. And it is a big deal. And I think from what I know of the people who have previously won this event, that they have hugely benefited from it. And we in the Federation and others have benefited from their input. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy now to hand back over to Krishnan and to sit back and watch the talent that is now going to be on display. Thank you very much.
So our first contestant is a strategic project officer for Merthyr Valley Homes. Her topic is creating an offer for young people and what models housing associations could pursue. Please welcome Katie Howells.
So today I'm going to use this opportunity to talk to you about why, as a sector, we need to change the way we are tackling housing for young people. Some might say we are not looking at the issue as a whole. Others might say we're not looking at the issue at all. And this has left a crisis in which thousands of our most vulnerable young people have been left without a home and battling serious mental health issues. Youth homelessness is rising. Could this have been prevented? Yes. Do we need a countrywide change to tackle this issue? I believe so, yes. For years, this country has marginalised the needs of young people. They get a lower minimum wage. Well, I question what exactly makes their work less valuable. There's been no strong commitment to housing for young people, and in comparison to housing for the elderly, it really is pitiful. Welfare reform continues to batter young people, and there's been huge funding cuts to a fundamental service, youth work. Those aged 16 to 18 don't even get a vote, but maybe that's a debate best left for another day. While we as a sector are not responsible for all of this, we do have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to change a young person's life. We have the opportunity to provide them with a future, with a starting point, irrespective of their childhood experiences. We also have a rather loud collective voice. And what better way to use this voice than to ensure the future of our country have the start in life that they truly deserve? The data from Centrepoint is absolutely shocking. It estimates that 86,000 young people approached their local authority last year in the UK as they were homeless or at risk of homelessness. Homeless young people have different issues and different needs to adults. They're often homeless because it's not safe for them to have a home, to stay at home, or family life has become too hard. We know that thousands of young people sleep rough every night, but there are thousands more we don't see, sleeping on sofas, floors, night buses, or even with strangers. The hidden homeless, the ones that we can't go out and count. Research carried out in Wales shows that 86% of homeless young people didn't know they were homeless as they were sofa surfing or staying out all night. These young, vulnerable people with no other housing option are being forced to put themselves at serious risk. Last year, I spoke at the CIH Cymru conference on an issue of sex for rent, where landlords are freely advertising free rent in exchange for sexual favours online. After a Welsh TV show on this, I am now heading a campaign in Wales to end this scandal once and for all. This is the choice young people are faced with. Shelter research shows that over 250,000 people were offered accommodation for free or reduced rent in exchange for sexual favours in the last 5 years. This can only happen in a market that is exploitive, and in this case, a broken housing market. This screams that we need to make a change and find a solution for young people, and fast. So, for the solution, in Canada, there has been a lot of work done to develop a housing first for youth model. This is something I think we could and we should be implementing in the UK. The evidence is really clear. This works, and it bears the realisation and acknowledgement that young people do have different challenges that are age-specific and that their housing needs do differ from others. The core principles of Housing First for Youth include a right to housing with no preconditions, youth choice, youth voice and self-determination, positive youth development and wellness orientation, individualised, client-driven supports and no time limits, and finally, social inclusion and community integration. Housing First works on the belief that housing is a basic human right, a belief that I'm sure we all share. Housing First for Youth in Canada is an effective, evidence-based approach to ending youth homelessness. The model highlights how we need to tailor Housing First to the unique needs of young people so that we can end youth homelessness once and for all. It is based on the understanding the causes and conditions of youth homelessness are distinct from adults, and therefore the solutions must be youth-focused. Housing First for Youth is grounded in the belief that all people have a right to good quality housing, and that those who have experienced homelessness will do better and recover more effectively if first they are provided with a home. Please, if you leave here today with anything, then go away and research some of the fantastic Canadian models which show that this is actually working. We must realise that this isn't an issue that a single organisation or even a single sector can tackle alone. We need to work together. We need to adopt a collective impact approach to working. We need to work more collaboratively to ensure that we get this right. We need to bring young people's housing in from the margins, and I would recommend a young person's advisory panel reporting to boards and policymakers. Young people do have a voice, and it's really important that we listen to them. Rents that are truly flexible and affordable, and a student finance style support for housing for young people taking apprenticeships or trainee-based roles. I do realise that some of that may be a big ask and may take some serious lobbying, and it's not going to happen overnight. But here I've given you some examples that you can all take away from today, that we can all implement in our own organisations. We need to make a commitment to collaborative working with statutory services. We need to be in the schools. We need to be aiming for prevention. We need to create user-friendly systems, communications, and documents. We need to bring young people to the forefront of our decisions. They need to be high on the agenda. We need to train staff in how to support and work with groups more at risk of homelessness. We need to listen. We need to make space for young people on our boards and our advisory panels. And finally, we need to lead by example. We need to support the campaigns aiming to make a real difference, such as End Youth Homelessness UK and End Youth Homelessness Cymru. We do need political change, but we can all make changes to stop young people being left out in the cold. Maybe Theresa May's recognition of the stigma is the start. Maybe young people sleeping on the streets, we've finally woken up to. Let's work together and let's fix this. Our young people do deserve better, and together we can achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Next up, we have a finalist by video. And so she's a service manager at Longhurst Group. Her topic is her vision of creating well-being centres and training flats across the country and how they can benefit housing association tenants. This is Helen Florence.
Hello, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Helen Florence. I'm a service manager at Wisbeach Foyer. I'm sincerely apologise that I cannot be here today. Unfortunately, I'm on my honeymoon in Thailand. I did ask for my husband to rearrange it, however, unfortunately, he wasn't having any of it. Previously, I spoke about wellbeing centres and training flats. Wellbeing centres, these are centres located in communities whereby local agencies such as counsellors, drink and drug agencies, bereavement services, money management services and job coaches can provide drop-ins for our residents and local community. The idea is that this would ensure that the communities get the help they need and quickly. It would reduce NHS waiting lists and people's issues. It would also help to reduce the fear of walking into health centres, as the space would be a lot more informal. Training flats. These are rooms that are connected to wellbeing centres which will not have any rental income. However, it's a set-up flat whereby staff support service users with practical skills such as changing a light bulb, putting up shelves, painting and decorating. There will also be an electric meter, stopcock and gas box whereby residents can learn how to top up electric and gas and also how to take accurate readings. This will prepare them to live independently and potentially in the future reduce void costs because residents will be looking after their properties better and companies therefore will be able to turn properties around quicker as they should be in a better state of repair. It would also help young people to maintain a property better and give them the confidence in doing so. As I have already run a survey with residents, I know that this is something that they feel that they would engage in, and they felt that training flats would be helpful to prepare them for independent living. I also engaged with local services as they were very keen to run a drop-in service and it felt it was a good idea. As we all know, mental health services are stretched to their limits and I feel this is a very big issue within the sector at present. Therefore, I know my idea will improve the well-being of tenants and local communities as they will be able to access specialist support quickly. They will not have to wait for doctor's appointments or sit on a waiting list. They will be able to walk into a centre and be assessed there and then. They will be able to seek a variety of support in an informal environment. They will not feel judged and they will be given the time. The benefits it would give to wider organisations are their properties would be maintained to a good standard. Their tenants would potentially manage their tenancy and rent better as they will have better access to support with their health. It will prevent residents feeling lonely and improve their economic well-being. It would also assist the preventing door of homelessness and will help people to remain in their accommodation long term and maintain their tenancies positively. The benefits it would have on the health sector is that it will be less demand on waiting lists and doctor surgeries. It would enable health providers to support some of the most vulnerable people in society who wouldn't normally access their services. It would help to access the harder to reach members in society and reduce long-term illness as people would be seeking help earlier. It would also prevent teenage pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases, as staff will be able to offer sexual health and contraception advice, like we are already doing at Wisbech Foyer. Finally, I would like to add that I have already started to implement a wellbeing centre at Wisbech Foyer. I have currently got 3 services who are potentially willing to run drop-ins from our service. I already have plans to roll this out countrywide, and my plan is that if Wisbech Foyer is successful in running a wellbeing centre, I will start by rolling them out in other foyers within Axiom Housing Association. Then I will use my links within the Foyer Federation to access other foyers countrywide, and hopefully that will give me access to different organisations and housing providers. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Again, I'm really sorry that I'm not there. I wish all the young leaders the best of luck, and I'll be sharing a drink with you at the after party all the way from Thailand.
Right, our next finalist is Policy Officer at Incommunities. Her topic is how housing associations should empower frontline staff and tenants and the benefits of this. Please welcome Rebecca Simpson.
Good afternoon. It really is a pleasure to be in front of you here today to present my ideas for the future of our sector. I'd like to start by drawing upon some of the lessons that I've learned from my leadership journey in housing to date. My journey so far has provided me with a compelling and vivid experience of working initially on the front line as a neighbourhood officer, but more recently the reflective experience of working in housing policy for both Incommunities and Homes for the North. But the question that I keep returning to, and one that I feel most passionately about, is why do we so often allow systems and processes to determine and dictate the services that we offer for our customers? Working in policy, I put a lot of thought into this and into thinking about some of the ways that we might remove some of the barriers. But I find when shaping the answer, I'm always returned to where I started my career on the front line as a neighbourhood officer in 2013. I saw the positives that we deliver for people through supporting neighbourhoods and communities and providing people with somewhere to call home. But I also remember the difficulties that I faced because of systems and bureaucracies that were embedded in practice and provided a blockage to just simply getting things done. I've also taken some time to speak to my colleagues, tenants, and senior leaders across the sector who share my views on this issue and who recognise the issues that our tenants and staff are grappling with, many of who are taking steps to tackle this challenge head-on. I recently had a conversation with Martin Armstrong from the Wheatley Group. Now, they provide a very compelling case of the Think Yes initiative, which acts on what customers ask for by challenging traditional authoritarian structures and moving to a culture where staff are empowered to think yes and take decisions when presented with problems that need to be resolved. They've seen amazing results. Tenant satisfaction has shot up to 92%, and staff satisfaction has gone up to 94%. And I'm also proud that I work for an organisation that's committed to improving people's lives and offering services beyond housing. At Incommunities, we've developed an employment offer in partnership with Bradford Council, which matches customers to jobs where they want to be through listening to their aspirations. 94% of people that go through our programme have not returned to job seeker status, and in Bradford, this is achieved in an environment that is economically challenging. At the heart of these successful examples and of my own experience is the fundamental importance of taking a person-centred approach. We all seek to uphold the importance of being a person-centred sector, but we often let systems and processes get in the way of us delivering that. I think that in recent years, we've allowed our social contract with tenants to change, and that's not necessarily for the better. So as a leader, there are 3 key things that I would address to make that change. Top of my list would be putting tenants first. Over the years, we've become more preoccupied with addressing what government changes to come next. But by looking to the government for answers, are we missing some of the point? Should we not really be looking at the people that we're here to serve? To shape and deliver value for customers, tenants must be at the heart. For me, this is about more than formal structures such as tenant scrutiny, tenant board members. Although that's important, it's about the value and insights that our frontline staff are out there getting right now and every day. From that interaction, how those insights feed into the value of the strategic direction of our businesses. Secondly, would be a shift away from traditional hierarchies by moving to a place where leadership is devolved throughout our organisations. The digitalisation of work should be used to enable this leadership shift, which will drive the most valuable interactions happening between tenant and landlord on the ground every day. I see everyone as a leader. Therefore, it is essential that staff are empowered and equipped to make decisions and truly make a difference to tenant lives, as well as achieving increases in efficiency and better value for money. Effective leadership is not about command and control. It's about trusting people to do the right thing and acting as enablers for that to happen. And thirdly, would be ensuring that housing staff are recognised as professionals, people who know their stuff, trusted to make decisions. The importance of a housing professional has been allowed to slip in recent years, and that's come at a cost. We hold ourselves, all of us, in high regard as being, in terms of our social values and our ethics, it's what ties us all together as a sector. And it is because of this that our tenants must be assured that they are dealing with respected and responsible housing professionals able to meet their needs. We need people-centred housing professionals with the skills it takes to deal with the diverse range of tenant needs and the growing spectrum. Pulling these 3 points together, putting tenants first, devolving leadership, and recognising housing staff as professionals, there's a clear thread that runs through all three. Trust. Trust in institutions in general is running at an all-time low, and we must not allow housing to be drawn into that downward spiral. Trusting in staff, trusting in tenants, and most importantly, tenants trusting in us as their landlords is pivotal to the credibility of our organisations. We need to build trust through co-creating a new social contract with communities that puts people right at the heart. Systems and processes don't build trust, but people do. Thank you.
Our last finalist is lettings manager at Network Homes, with the topic how housing associations can help tenants already in work to further themselves and free up other homes. A warm welcome, please, for Shannice James-McFee.
Helmut Schmidt once said, "The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement." And I feel like I'm in the right room with the right people to allow some of the ideas I'll discuss today to become a possibility. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shannice, and I'll be presenting to you today on how we as housing associations can help support working residents who have home ownership aspirations and in turn free up social housing properties. Now, how do we know that social renters actually want to become homeowners? The research shows us. According to the English Housing Survey, from 2015 to 2017, the increase in social renters wanting to actually buy has increased from 27% to 30%. That equates to 1.2 million households. Now, that's not going to be an aspiration for all social renters, and that's fine. But if we were to focus and be able to target the 30% that do have this as an aspiration, we could help free up the ever-declining stock of social housing properties. So what can we do as housing associations to bridge the gap and allow those who have the dream of becoming homeowners and create that as a reality? So I have two ideas for you today. The first one is how we can actually target social renters who are already paying their rent without any government support. And two, how we can start preparing for the future now, teaching our young people and children about budgeting and saving tips. You may know, on average, 35% of social renters are already paying their rent without government support. However, they may not know that they are actually suitable for home ownership. I class these sets of people the forgotten. They're forgotten because we as housing associations don't engage with them as much because they're paying their rent on time and they're sustaining their tenancies without issues. I'd like us as housing associations to start engaging with these people, discussing the options available to them, such as private rented accommodation or home ownership. Now, there's lots of attractive offers on the market already to help people into their first property, and you can see some on the board here. However, all of these schemes have one thing in common: a deposit is required. And if we consider that only 18% of social renters have a savings account, how can it be attainable for them to actually save up to actually get their first home, even a minimum of 5%? So what I'd like to see is an ambitious idea, but for us as housing associations to start supporting our residents with low interest rate deposits so that we can help them get onto the property ladder. And those deposits can be returned if they sell their properties in the future. We can't just start thinking about, building homes. We want to make sure that we're building confident people that, are able to aspire and actually live out their dreams. Some local authorities are already providing this, such as Westminster Council, who are actually helping a lot of their residents via their Home Accelerator scheme and helping them actually into home ownership, which is fantastic. There's a lot of red tape around housing associations becoming lenders, but I don't think it's an unrealistic goal. I think we also need to be realistic about availability. We have a goal of building 300,000 new homes a year by 2025, which is amazing. But if we focus on London, for instance, where the population is ever increasing, how are we going to sustain that going forward? We need to start speaking to our residents about looking at easily commutable towns into London, where, as you can see from here, the average house price actually significantly decreases as well. Now, moving on to my second topic, it's quite sad to report that according to M&G Investments, 1 in 6 parents doesn't feel comfortable talking about money with their children. And if we align that with the fact that 27% of 20 to 34-year-olds in the UK are still living at home with their parents, unable to get on the property ladder, clearly we're not talking about money soon enough with our young people. We need to, as housing associations, start to partner up with banks, partner up with mortgage brokers, financial advisors, and give our families and young people the tools they need to succeed, teaching them what it takes to budget, save, and the home ownership options available to them. We have to target our young people from an early age that they can actually grow up to become empowered people as well. To put this in perspective, this is actually my goddaughter. She's 6 years old, and from the moment she's been born and I've been entrusted to be her godmother, it's been really important for me to make sure that when she wants to become a homeowner, that is a possibility for her. So I've made sure, alongside myself with her parents, we save regularly, but we do discuss budgeting and saving. Now, she's only 6, so that just means things like when we go to the shops, we have a budget on the toys that we're going to spend, and we have a budget for the snacks that she likes. So she understands exactly what it takes for savings. And I'll just add in one thing. I know it works for her because she gets a regular allowance, and recently she's been given some money. She's got a visit from the tooth fairy. She lost her tooth. And she actually said, you know what, I've got £2 because I've lost two teeth, but I'm going to put £1 in the bank, Auntie Shannice, just like you tell me, and I'm going to spend £1 at the shop. So I know it's working. So to summarize, I think we've all heard the phrase, knowledge is power. And I truly believe that if we can actually engage with the 35% of social renters already paying their rent on time without any government support, we can help them into home ownership. But we can't just start there. We also need to look at the future too. We need to look at our young people. And we need to actually start working with banks, mortgage brokers, financial advisors, and giving our young people and families the tools they need to succeed. Let's think beyond just providing homes, but also focus on creating empowered young people. Thank you very much.
Right. Time for questions, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you can send in questions on the app, as with all the other sections, but I'm going to kick off with a couple. And these go to all three of them. Reasonably concise answers, please. First of all, how do you think your idea would improve well-being for staff and tenants? Shannice, let's start with you.
For me, I entered housing because I thought it was a great place to work and actually be able to have an impact in the world and help. I love seeing the look on people's faces when they're actually being able to, given the gift of a home and somewhere safe to actually stay. And when I think about my idea, obviously, it is helping those who actually have aspirations of home ownership. My mum, for instance, in the late 90s, she was able to get onto a home buy scheme and become a homeowner because of that. And for me, I know that that's the only possibility I have now. I will never go into social housing. The expectation for my family is that I have to become a homeowner, and they're helping me do so. But I think for me, in terms of that question, it's about providing residents with knowing that there is a future beyond social housing, that we as a housing provider, we care about what your dreams are, we care about what your aspirations are, and we want to actually help you progress if that is something you want to do. And I think for staff, just seeing that we are actually working beyond just, providing homes, but really just creating promise for people's futures as well. That is quite a massive kind of empowering tool to know you're coming in and working for an organisation that does that.
Rebecca.
I think for me, on the tenant side, a lot of the time we see that tenants feel that they're going around different departments to try and get things done for our organisation. So, but the point that I made about staff being empowered to actually make a difference and act on what tenants ask for, in terms of tenant wellbeing, it stops them having to go backwards and forwards between our organisations just to simply get something done. And on the staff side, you could see from the Wheatley Group example where they've actually used that Think Yes initiative, the staff satisfaction has gone up because staff are feeling like, yeah, I can actually make a difference. And for me, I came into this sector to make a difference. And I think a lot of people did come into this sector for that reason. Most of us are here because we want to make a difference to somebody's life. So for staff, knowing that they can do that without having some of the shackles of going around different systems and bureaucracies does increase staff satisfaction and staff well-being as well.
Katie, how do you think your idea would improve well-being for staff and tenants?
I think first of all for tenants and for the younger people, the Housing First for Youth model, it's not a crisis-based approach. So we all know the problems that sometimes working on a crisis-based approach can bring, and how when people are already out living on the streets, people are already experiencing homelessness, that the problems that is having, the problems related to mental health, the problems related to not being able to go to school, the problems related to not being able to gain employment. So I think this is all about prevention. It's all about making sure that they don't get there, or if they have already got there, making sure they don't have to get there again. So I think for well-being for tenants, it's really important that we look at it in the preventative way, and that's the only way we're going to stop youth homelessness for good. And then for the employees, I think it's about giving them a flexible approach. So like I said in my presentation, there's no time limits with the Housing First for Youth model, so you haven't got to meet certain time limits to say, so they've got to move on to the next period of support now, or they've got to move on by this age or by this stage. It's about giving them the creativity and the time to be able to actually work with that person, and recognising that that person is an individual, and recognising that everybody has different needs, everybody's been through different experiences, and especially when we're working with the most vulnerable in our communities, most vulnerable young people, it's about having the flexible approach, and then that takes the stress off the staff. And it's also about, like the girls have said, we all come into this sector to help people. We all come into the sector to improve people's lives. I'm sure we did. And this gives you the opportunity to actually do that. It sees someone through from the beginning of their journey to the very end. And it's a complete new way of working, a refreshing way of working. And I think that's what's really important. And that's what will give our staff the drive to make a difference.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question from me. What do you think is the key thing the sector's getting wrong, and what would you do about it? Rebecca.
For me, I think it's this thing around a social contract with tenants, and I think whilst there's a lot of value in it, we're a little bit obsessed on the already involved tenant side and how we engage with our already engaged tenants. Yet we sometimes seem to forget that we have frontline staff who are out actually in our communities with our tenants every single day and are picking up on the issues. I mean, with the CIH Rethinking Social Housing report, I spent some time doing workshops with our staff and our customers, and the feedback that I got from both groups was pretty much the same, because the frontline staff do know the issues that are going on. So I sometimes think we're missing that valuable stuff that comes in on the ground and how we feed that up our organisations. Instead of sometimes looking how tenants can go straight to the top, what about the structures in between? And you hit a wider group of tenants as well when you do that. I think that's what we really need to change, and to build up our tenants know that they can come to us and they don't need to go to the chief exec or to the director or even a manager to get something done. It gets done at that first point of contact. And I think that that's the biggest thing where we really need to have a rethink and think about that.
Katie.
For me, it's about communication. So I think as a sector, we're really good at talking to ourselves and telling stories in conferences or on social media about the great things that we do, but we're not really great at publicising that to the wider general public. And I think something that David O said during our last part of the contest really rang true with me. He referenced talking about Housing Day on Twitter and how we really talk to each other during that, and we don't really get the message out to the wider public. And I think that's something that we definitely need to tackle. I referenced in my presentation some research that was carried out in Wales saying 86% of young people didn't know they were homeless when they were. But that research also showed that 86% of young people didn't know where to go to help and where to access help. And I think that's quite shocking, and it shows that our communications are not efficient enough. And I think the best way for us to tackle that, we can tackle that in a number of ways, but I think the best way for us to tackle that is through engaging with our tenants. Like the mutual housing model is a really great way of doing that, because it's actually getting the tenants in. You know, I'm sure any comms heroes in the audience will agree that the best way to get the message out is by word of mouth. So getting the tenants in and engaging with tenants is the best way to do that. But what I'd also like to see is some sort of government-backed campaign, but on a wider scale, so like a sector-wide campaign where we can include a number of organisations and a series of campaigns to explain about the support that is out there. Because for me, as a young person growing up in my hometown, I wasn't aware of the services that were available from housing associations, services that would have really helped me. And I think so the more that we can spread the message and the more that we can get out there, the fantastic work that we do, and the better that it will be, really.
Shannice.
I think there's not enough collaborative working. I think as a sector, we're very competitive and we want to be the best and we're building the most and we've got the most profit, and we're focused a lot on the surplus, and obviously that helps us actually build more. But I think we're drawing away from what our social purpose was and our roots of housing in the first place, and certainly for what I actually got into housing for. And just looking at, for instance, when I go on a lot of housing associations' websites, it's all about we've built here and this is the development, and it's not about the people. What are the people saying? How are the people feeling? How are they, enjoying their accommodation? And what are you doing to actually support them? And I want to see us getting back to that and less focus on the building. Yes, it's needed, it's great, but let's put the focus back on our residents. I think we want to be known as a sector not about just money and profits, and we want to be known about being a force for good, about being a force to actually creating better lives.
Do the judges have any questions, or shall I plough on with the audience? Okay. Right, most popular audience question so far is some free advice, please. How can we attract even more inspirational young leaders to organisations? Katie.
I think, again, it's about the communication. It's about showing what a great core service the housing is, and it's about getting that message out there. And when we're getting that message out there in the public, then that message will be getting to the young people as well. And it's also about, like I say, going into schools, being there, being down on the front line, talking to people, talking to our communities, not just our tenants, but the wider communities, and showing what we do, how we change people's lives, and what a fantastic sector it is to work in. I've only been in the sector myself for 3 years, and I worked in hospitality before, and it's a completely different world, I get so much job satisfaction from what I do, and it's about sharing these stories. It's about sharing the good that we do. It's about sharing the people's stories of where they've came from, what they've achieved, where they are now, and that's how we do it, really.
Shannice?
I completely agree. I think it's about targeting, going into schools, colleges, universities, and actually I think a lot of people don't know what we actually do in housing if you're not in housing. I think it's an assumption, and I think we need to actually start having those conversations about it's it provides a life purpose. For me, I know this is the sector that I'm going to be in for life. I enjoy it. I love knowing that I come into my job every day and I'm actually helping, as part of my role, as part of my team, we are helping a lot of people. And it's just providing that, like I said, going in and having those conversations. I think also, but kind of looking at, collaborative working with areas outside of the housing market. We know that there's obviously a lot of, great young leaders in other areas, kind of drawing a mind blank at the moment as to some of those, businesses. But once we have more collaborative working, they may too see, for instance, okay, wow, I didn't know that, in the housing sector they do this. Maybe some of my ideas and thinking, I can actually bring that over into the housing realm as well.
Rebecca.
I think for me that there's two things on that. The first one is that a lot of young people want to work in a sector that has good social value, and we've got that in abundance. As I said in my presentation, it ties us all together. And I think getting that message out there that working for housing associations is working in a sector where people can really make an impact on society. I think that's one thing we need to push out there more. The second thing is I think a lot of people don't realise the diverse range of jobs that are actually available in housing associations. So I recently have been in touch with Bradford University about being a mentor, and I was talking to the lady that runs the programme over there and telling her, well, we've got people who work in finance, legal, IT, asset management, surveyors, housing officers. There's all this range of jobs, and she just didn't thought it was just housing officers. So there's a lot more to it. So I think it's getting that message out there as well, alongside the sort of social impact that we have, and putting those together and getting the message out there, as the other two have said, I think is how we'd attract more people in.
Right. So just briefly, how much experience have you got in the housing sector, each of you? 3 years?
5 years.
5 years?
6 years.
6 years, okay. No false modesty now. How many years more before you think you could actually run your organisation?
I could do it now. No, I'm joking. I think I'm a sucker. I've got to be an absolute expert at anything I do. So I think for me, probably looking at the 10-year mark where I could actually step into a chief exec role. I think that's realistic, and I think that's not overly ambitious. And I think, yeah, I could do it definitely within the 10-year mark.
I'm looking at Geraldine. I'm not going to try and take your job. But, I think it's really difficult to put a time on it. I mean, I've worked in as a housing officer, and I'm learning a lot working in policy, and I think that strategic thinking is where I'm trying to develop personally, and have an overview of our organisation, but the wider world as well. So I think 10-year mark's a good place to pitch it, maybe, and
Yeah.
soon as possible.
For myself, I too am looking at my director over there, thinking, okay, I'm a bit closer to the 10-year mark, I suppose, than you guys. But I think, realistically,
No, don't be real. I mean, look, I started presenting Channel 4 News
Yeah.
when I was 28.
Yeah.
So when do you think you could do it?
I would love to in 5 years.
Okay.
But can I just add there, though, I think that we can all lead our organisations from any different level within the organisation. So I think that we can all have an impact. So you don't have to be chief exec to have that impact.
Right. Do you feel you have the support from those around you to be able to take your ideas forward? Bearing in mind, you've just told your bosses you want their jobs. Shannice.
I know I do. I've already run through my presentation with the key people in my organisation that could allow some of the ideas to become a reality, and they too have been really interested. I think the main topic about actually partnering with like financial advisors and mortgage brokers, etc., really struck a chord with a lot of people in my organisation. I think because a lot of people don't realise, even just because you're working in housing doesn't mean for you that you're going to get on the property ladder any easier. There's many of my colleagues that are struggling to get on the property ladder themselves. And a lot of them thought when I asked the question, when did you actually have conversations about money? And a lot of them have said, kind of just I had to find out on my own, really. My parents didn't ever sit down with me and talk about, okay, if you want to become a homeowner, this is what you need to do. They never really talked to me about budgeting and saving. And I think that's such a simple idea for us as the Housing Association to just be able to provide that to our residents. So, yeah, I think I definitely have the support. I know I do.
Yeah, I think 100% I've got the support of my organisation, and I think the sector as a whole is putting a lot of focus on trying to get young people in. There's a big recognition of senior leaders in the sector being over 50 and that there needs to be more younger people coming through. I do think that sometimes the focus is on getting new people in when there's actually a lot of talent already in the sector, and not necessarily young people, people that are in the third, well, this is going to sound bad because 30s is not old, so I'll rephrase. People who are like young, 30 and 40. But yeah, there's a lot, basically what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of talent in organisations as well that there is to be tapped into, as well as bringing new people in. And I think we need to focus on that as much as the young people we already have in and bringing them up.
Yeah, and I think the same as what the girls have said, you know, the support that I get inside my organisation is second to none. You can tell that we've all been nominated from someone inside of our organisations to get here today, and I've had so many opportunities. I've only been in Merthyr Homes for 3 years, but I've had so many opportunities in those 3 years to take on bigger projects, to progress, to push myself, to get better, to learn. And I think that's really, really important. I think as a sector, we are a very, very supportive sector. And I know if I've learned anything from my chief exec is going forward as a leader, I want to be that person, I want to be that mentor, and I want to be bringing the best out in someone else. So I want to be working with the people who work for me one day and making sure that they have the same opportunities, because giving people this opportunity then is not just an opportunity for us, it's an opportunity for you guys as well. And it's about sharing ideas, sharing information, and sharing our stories from our backgrounds as well, because all of this makes us individuals, makes us great at what we do. And yeah, the support, like I say, from the sector as a whole is absolutely fantastic.
Right. Last question, I think, from the board. Tricky one, this. With Brexit nearing, what impact do you think this will have for housing associations and young people being able to buy their first home? Becca.
For housing associations, obviously it's difficult. We're largely in the unknown, like the rest of businesses. But I think construction industry is probably the biggest concern for us, and how that's going to impact, particularly probably more so in London, where a lot of the construction workers are migrants. So I think that's the biggest concern. The second part of the question for young people, I actually think that for young people, for me personally anyway, it's quite sad to think with Brexit that it's, you know, it just seems like it's becoming more of a disconnect between people. It's creating more tensions in society in some ways, and that's not really the way that we or I want things to go. And especially like we talk a lot more about collaboration, and when you think about Brexit, you're thinking about all things being separate and changing. So I think it's about us keeping that central, that we want to work together and carry on sharing ideas, and not letting sort of this mess of Brexit get in the way of that and driving that forward.
Katie.
I think the honest answer to that is, who knows? I have absolutely no idea, and I think nobody does. And I think until it actually happens, that we're not going to actually find out. But what I would hope is that our young people are still feeling empowered, are still feeling optimistic, and are not feeling scared or left out in the cold then by the fact that we're going to leave the European Union. But I think for us as housing associations, it does create some uncertainty, but no more uncertainty than what we have already been living through then. The operating context that we've been working in over the last couple of years has been crazy. You know, we've all been gearing up for the LHA cuts or the supported services budget cuts, and we've been doing so much work around what we're going to lose, but not then when it gets to the crunch, we haven't lost it. And I think we're already working in a really challenging environment, and we've proved that we can come through that. And I think that's what's important to remember when we're going through Brexit.
Shannice.
I think I agree exactly with what the ladies have said here as well. We don't know, it's uncertain. We don't know if it's going to, what's going to happen, obviously, when we finally do leave. But I do think I think as a sector, we're quite reactive, and we do plan when things change. And looking at the unfortunate events of Grenfell, for instance, when that did happen, I think we all came together and made sure that we obviously planned, made sure obviously building regulations and everything we've checked and made sure that we put those changes in place. So I think when it does happen, we know exactly the position that we're in. I think we will react quickly and make sure that the measures are in place to make sure that our young people aren't at a further disadvantage than what they are now. I think we will continue to actually support them whatever the situation is. It may be the case that house prices continue to actually decline because of Brexit, and obviously that would be a peak time for us to actually help support our young people at that point, but we won't know until it happens.
Well, I think they're all very good, don't you? Thank you very much. Well done. The winner will be announced during David Orr's closing address later on this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed.